Most people who are afraid of the darkness come to find that it's not the darkness itself that's frightening, but the possibility of what exists in it, lurking, growing. They only become unafraid of the darkness when they accept that what is in the darkness isn't frightening at all. This is exactly what Annie Lily Amirpour's film A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night does to the Gothic literature genre. It presents the fears of racial and language equality and female independence that plagues the genre to its fans, making the darkness a lot more comforting. The film isn't your average vampire horror story like Bram Stoker's original novel, and it isn't your average Hollywood love story either, well. What Amirpour achieved with her film is a vampire story that completely revolutionizes, and also refuses, the genre. Let me explain. In the Dracula novel, the character of Jonathan Harker is from London. During his journal entries, he immediately translates whatever German language is thrown at him for the reader's satisfaction, only briefly letting some of the German spill into his entries. Even when the Count himself interacts with Harker, he switches from his native tongue to English for Harker's benefit. This concretes English as the predominant language. In Amirpour's film, each of the characters speak in Persian. This is because they are of Iranian ethnicity. The English language, however, is present, but in a more secondary fashion, being present in the form of subtitles for English audiences and background noise in the scene where Arash is invited to the girl's home. There are also other examples of English being presented as a secondary language, such as Sahid's sex tattoo, a nod to how English-speaking people get a tattoo of something important to them in a foreign language, and also the fact that the story takes place in an Iranian city, even though it was filmed in Southern California, contradicting the norms of not only the genre, but the Hollywood formula of making films in general. This contradiction of favoured racial and language norms is startling for most audiences, as they are used to the dominantly white and English-focused stories. But as they are sucked into A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, they begin to understand that it's not only a story that assists the change in how the genre began, but one that outright attacks it and its views on women. Since the beginning of Gothic literature in the 1800s, the fear of the independent woman by men has made its way into texts like Bram Stoker's novel. In it, Stoker uses the characters of Lucy and Mina to convey the drastic consequences that a woman that goes against the conformity of the ideal woman, one that doesn't go against their husband and will please and cater for them in every way. Mina is constructed as the ideal woman, as she is loyal to Harker. Lucy, on the other hand, isn't loyal, being involved with multiple men, thus making her the big bad depiction of the non-ideal woman. Both of the characters come under Count Dracula's influence. What separates them is that Mina, the perfect one, is spared death, going on to raise a child and live a happy life, while Lucy, the apparently non-perfect one, well. Amirpour depicts the female conformity of the perfect woman in a more darker tone to prove her point, showing more of the abuse women suffer when they are forced to conform to this outdated ideology. Both texts involve a female vampire. However, in A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, the vampire lives, and it's the men that force their dominance on a woman that are killed, targeting at the very thing that vampire stories went against, the independent woman. Overall, what makes Amirpour's film so transcendent in the Gothic literature genre is how it compares to the romanticised vampire stories of today. Although it does contain those aspects in the film, it ultimately kills the real monster of the stories, which is the outdated values, making the darkness of the stories a lot more comforting.